am pleased to turn things over to Gilbert Gutierrez.
It's ironic to have such a very short time to present a taste of Chan, but on the other hand, Chan cannot be explained by words and phrases. So it's a kind of a quagmire, which we'll actually talk about. That if we cannot speak about in words and phrases, why do we do that? In the Vilamakruti Sutra, there's a chapter in which the various disciples talk about their understanding of emptiness, and they get all the way through to Manjusri. And everybody was interested in seeing hearing what Manjusri was going to say. But when it came for him to say it, because when he was saying, what is emptiness? Essentially, it's also saying, what is mind? And he said, this cannot be spoken of. And that was it. That's all he said. So then they asked Vilamakruti, and Vilamakruti was a layperson, but his ability and understanding exceeded the disciples of the Buddha. And so when they asked him, then what do you say? And he didn't say a word. So it's an interesting thing, because when we look at this and we say, okay, well, is he deeper than Manjusri in his way? It's ironic to have such a very short time to present a taste of Chan. But on the other hand, Chan cannot be explained by words and phrases. So it's a kind of a quagmire, which we'll actually talk about. That if we cannot speak about in words and phrases, why do we do that? In the Vilamakruti Sutra, there's a chapter in which the various disciples talk about their understanding of emptiness, and they get all the way through to Manjusri. And everybody was interested in seeing hearing what Manjusri was going to say. But when it came for him to say it, because when he was saying, what is emptiness? Essentially, it's also saying, what is mind? And he said, this cannot be spoken of. And that was it. That's all he said. So then they asked Vilamakruti, and Vilamakruti was a layperson, but his ability and understanding exceeded the disciples of the Buddha. And so when they asked him, then what do you say? And he didn't say a word. So it's an interesting thing, because when we look at this and we say, okay, well, is he deeper than Manjusri in his way? But in terms of the understanding of this is a perspective that doesn't really come from the idea of this world, which we call samsara. And I'm going to give you a little bit. For some people, this is just ABCs. To others, it's new to you. The samsaric realm is a realm in which sentient beings are part of the six realms, but they are communicating not in the six realms, but in the understanding of mind itself. You could say that the six realms, like in a Venn diagram, is this circle, but then around it is mind. But when we draw this, if I have a board there, I'll draw arrows with infinite signs all around it, showing that the mind is infinite. The appearances within it are capable of fitting in, but in samsara, mind is incapable of fitting into the six realms. It's just too vast, too infinite. This is something that's not easy for us to accept, because we only know measurements in terms of feet or meters or whatever system or time wise, but we're not accustomed to dealing with the incredible numbers that literally span the infinite, that is in mind. And it's the sutras are constantly talking about these kinds of numbers, so that one can begin to understand that mind is so incredibly vast in comparison to this moment in this human realm, including, for instance, in the Diamond Sutra, it is asked of Subhuti, a disciple of the Buddha, Subhuti, what do you think if someone was to give treasure chests in the amount that if the Ganges River, all those sands became Ganges rivers, and all the accumulated sands were treasure chests, would the merit be great? And Subhuti said, oh, very, very great. And the Buddha told him, not as great as the merit of speaking 4 verses or 4 lines of the sutra to others. It's hard for us to understand that. We say, well, that's like a lot of money. But then we simply have to see some of the millionaires, I shouldn't call them millionaires, billionaires that we have, and would you say that they possess great wisdom? Much less So compassion, right? So we cannot find the wealth equating to wisdom there. But the preciousness of the Dharma, it's so precious. We have to begin by understanding the great opportunity to listen to the Dharma, especially right view Dharma. Right view means that we understand how mind works. I have a forum online called the Mind Work Forum out of the Mighty Network. And we talk about mind work. We don't talk about trying to polish the self. There's a story that talks about this where this one young monk was sitting in meditation, and his master came by and said, "What are you doing?" And he's saying, "I'm sitting to become enlightened." And the master sat down next to him and took a roof tile and started polishing it, making a lot of noise, in, on purpose, making a lot of noise to disrupt the young monk. And the monk finally said, "Master, what are you doing making all that noise?" He says, "I'm trying to polish this, this tile to make it a diamond." He says, "You cannot do that." And the master said, "So too, you cannot become enlightened in the manner in which you're approaching things. This is not right view. This is a second level practice, which is constantly being referred to in the sutras and the treatises of the masters. That is one that's trying to make the ego better, make the ego behave, make the self behave. Where in fact, the Buddha never negated that there was a self. He just said it was not self, meaning that mind is way beyond that. And when we begin to see things and we understand, and especially in the Chan world, when we practice in the correct way, we are not practicing to build a staircase to heaven or to out of this world to mind. What we practice, as reflected by the Mahaprajna Paramita Sutras, and there's many of them from including 8,000 line up to 100,000 lines of the sutra. These are the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. They speak of demonstrating rather than adhering to some kind of a practice. So we understand this, and we understand from the six paramitas that these points, especially the practice of the wisdom to demonstrate it in a way in which we are showing the realization that this is how we present wisdom or patience or generosity or the right effort, the right concentration, the right sitting. All of these are things that are demonstrated not by us, but by mind. So we turn the mind's eye inward so that we can see things in a clearer way. This turning of the mind's eye inward is a turning in a way in which mind then is looking into this samsaric realm or this bubble. The Diamond Sutra talks about that all that we should consider or think of this fleeting world is like a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a dewdrop on a leaf, a morning star, an illusion, a phantasm, or a dream. A dream. This world is a dream world. We cannot identify the Buddha mind by the contents of this world, even though the contents of this world are created by mind. This is Chan. This is where all of the training from the India came in all of the doctrines came in. They were forged and brought to China. And then China did something very interesting because they already had Taoism and Confucianism, and so they put that all together, and they were willing to accept this foreign religion because it resonated with the existing doctrines and belief systems that they already had. It just made it clear. And so they openly accepted it. So this was the environment coming in. And it's kind of something very interesting because when Chan came into being, or before Chan came into being, the sutras that were coming in, the treatises, all of the schools and the doctrines that were pouring in from India, it was like a echo upon an echo upon an echo upon an echo. They had been written a few hundred years before they ever got there. Very amazing. And so as each piece of Dharma came through, the Chinese accepted it and studied it and had already gone through in India many challenges, many trials, many presentations, many counter arguments to each and every school. They didn't just simply present arguments against what they call heterodox schools, meaning schools that have different meanings, even within themselves and Buddhists. There was a great challenge to see if whatever is being presented was appropriate. So by the time it reached China, these battles turned the Buddha Dharma at that point into tempered steel because it had been banged on and heated and banged and banged and banged until when it came to China, it was very clear systems. We had Abhidharma coming in, and in the Theravadan, the contention there was that everything is mind, so everything is real because it belongs to mind. And then there came what was called the turning of the Dharma wheel, which was Mahayana. And by the way, Abhidharma means the highest Dharma. Mahayana is the highest vehicle. So if you're going to go somewhere and you need something, you're going to have the best vehicle to get you there. And so Mahayana was presenting through the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutras this notion of emptiness. No, Sariputta, form is not other than emptiness, is not other than emptiness. Emptiness is not other than form. A very big appearance of a doctrinal monolith appearing and changing the doctrinal scenery. And in a very, very positive way. It didn't necessarily say, oh, whatever was written before was no good. It's just adding to it and supplementing it in a way. Of course, there were battles between Theravadins and Mahayanists, but it wasn't something to the exclusion of one accepting the other. Although sometimes it appears that way, it isn't that way. It is just that following the natural course of the examination of this very deep doctrine presented by Shakyamuni Buddha, it resulted in this. And the doctrine that he initially presented was the 12 nidanas. So Shakyamuni Buddha was looking at things and trying to figure out, what about this old age, sickness, and death? How does that come about? Why does it come about? Why do we suffer? And so he sat down to try to contemplate and see through this. And seeing through it, it was. But it was mind seeing through mind, and he understood that. And so the first thing he presented was the 12 nidanas, or causal links. We call it the law of dependent origination. I don't have the time to go over the law of dependent origination or anything else I'm talking to you about. If you have a couple of years, we could probably make some good progress. But what I want to do is give you a taste of how Chan fits in the whole scheme of Buddha Dharma. So the very first of the causal links in the law of dependent origination is ignorance. From ignorance, everything springs forth. In the Queen Sharmala Devi's Lion's Roar Sutra, it talks about this notion of ignorance, and it sees it as a latent defilement, meaning that it's there very, very deep in the psyche of the so-called ego or personality, so deep that it's there, and it causes ignorance for those sentient beings to believe that they're actually suffering, to believe that this pain is real, to believe that they're not in a dream. They hurt, and when they hurt, they suffer, and they solidify more the idea of this dream. And then they eat a piece of lemon meringue pie or touch the lips of someone they love. Now they're really hooked. And they go up and down, pain and suffering, pain and suffering. They don't see it because they're ignorant to see that this is just a dream. What we don't understand about this and can't comprehend most of the time is that this dream, all of it, is created by the mind. Not your mind, not my mind. That's just consciousness. But mind itself. Mind cannot really be spoken of. We use the name mind, but you could not go out billions of light years and find something that references mind or calling it mind. We just use it for a conventional reference to something that cannot really be spoken of, or what the sutras constantly say. Here's your new word for the day. And if you have this word and you know the word, good for you. You're like postgraduate language, ineffable. So almost sounds like a cuss word, but it's not. Ineffable means indescribable, cannot be described whatsoever. And that is mine. Nevertheless, Manjusri was not wrong by saying that it cannot be discussed. He had to say something, because if we don't say something, then we just simply leave everyone suffering in this world because of their ignorance. But there is a fine line that we present as Dharma presenters. I don't really like to be called a teacher because I can't teach you anything. But I can present the Dharma, and your intrinsic nature, which is mine, can be awakened. Believe me, this is a big game changer in your life. You can be free from discrimination. And if you've encountered discrimination, you can be free from revenge and hate. You understand how the mind works, how this world works. Causes and conditions never fail. This is something that my master honed into me so strongly. Causes and conditions never fail. Pratika Samapada, the law of dependent origination. It's very simple. You plant a melon seed and you get a melon fruit. It's simple like that. You don't plant a cucumber seed and expect to get a melon. That wouldn't work. So if you're moment to moment to moment are constantly angry or pushed around by the waves of karma and ignorance and obstructions, vexations, desires, you will never find peace here. The only peace is to understand that just this moment, just this very moment, in this present moment is the Buddha present moment. Now, this Buddha present moment is very interesting because we work on what we think is a time continuum. And so we measure how long is a year. Well, it takes us this amount of time to get around the sun, and that's a year. Well, measure that somewhere else in the cosmos and see if it still applies. There it may be the time that an entire galaxy spirals in relationship to another galaxy spiraling. How much time is that? Well, it's ineffable. We cannot really see. But this is Buddha time and Buddha measurements, which they, in the sutras, they almost openly flaunt your idea of time and measurements and calculations and how much is a kalpa or a koti or whatever in measurements, and say, forget about it because it only applies in this dream. Now, I know, being from the human realm, at least this corporal body, that you have all had dreams in your life. If anybody says they never dreamed, I'm sure that our cyborg advancement of AI has really gone very deep. But if you're a human sentient being, you've dreamed, right? You can nod your head. Okay. Just so I know you guys are still awake. And tell me, think about it. The last time you had a dream, how long did that dream last? Have you ever had a dream where it's finishing just as your alarm is going off? Now, did that dream last the whole night? And some perfect orchestration brought you to the very moment that you're hearing at the end, Could it be that way? Or could that have been like that? In one sutra, they talk about a bodhisattva who made 5 kalpas pass in the snap of a finger. 5 kalpas. So, how is that? Depends. Are you dreaming or not dreaming? And if you're out of the dream, where is the measurement for the time? It's all mine. Please believe me, it's a new day, a new game. The game that you're playing is Chan, And the way to play the game is not to play it in the human realm. We are here for the purpose of awakening others to the fact, don't play the game. It's like tic-tac-toe, but you move second. You're never going to win. You're never going to win. Because the game is rigged against you. No matter what you do, you will die. If you were born, you die. That's what we do. But the difference is that between the moment that you draw your first breath in the samsaric realm to that you expire your last breath, what did you do in between? Chan is about wisdom. Chan is about compassion. What did you leave behind? The remaining bits of a 401k, some children and grandchildren, maybe great grandchildren. They're so lovable. You have a great grandchildren. And then you go, okay. And you pass them on to somebody else to take care of that. Is that the plan that we have? Why are you here? What is mine? It's very important for us to contemplate. Not your mind, not your consciousness. Your consciousness is an appearance in mind. What the sutras call a projection. It is just in this way. It's just a projection on the screen. But here's the kicker to it all. That screen that it's being projected on is infinite. Whether one goes in any of the 10 directions mentioned in the sutras, you would never get to the end of it. And the projections are just blips on the screen of causes and conditions of ignorance causing a dream bubble in this world. I'm going through this a little bit quickly, but I'm going through this in a way that I want you to feel it from your heart. And if something that I say sticks there, just bring it up later. One of the most important quotes of a Chan master was from Han Shan. And he said that it's like a sword piercing the sky. Think about this. Like a sword piercing the sky. You go, well, wait a second. How can a sword pierce through the empty sky? But quite clearly, it is like a sword piercing through the sky. The big thing here is the sword piercing through the sky. If one turns the mind's eye inward, it is as if through the Buddha perception that it is perceiving this world through that tear in the sky. Of course, it can go into this imaginary bubble, and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can transcend and go in and out as much as they want because it's a bubble, it's an imaginary bubble. To us, we think it's home. That's our mistake. But to be here, they have to take a form of a sentient being. It's hard to do that and relate to people if you do not take that physical form or close to a physical form of those that you want to deliver. It's not your real body that you have. It's just this way. So when we see things in this way, we understand that there are slumbering Buddhas. Each one of you possesses Buddha nature. You're already in. You're already in. When I see you, not too many of you put on your screens. I wish more of you put your screen on. I see Buddhas. I see the potentiality. My heart extends out with a sincere invitation to join me, not necessarily just to leave town and go somewhere better. Where are you going to go? But to help in delivering other sentient beings. This is very, very important. Now I'm departing way far from what I prepared today, very long notes. But it is in this way. Let us go to, how many of you have read the Heart Sutra? Raise your hands. Even if it's a little yellow hand, if you're blocking it. Pretty much everybody, right? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And some of you have read it 100 times, 1,000 times, 5,000 times. Do you understand it? There's many different meanings to sutras, many different meanings in communication. Sometimes when I'm presenting things to my students, there's 3 levels that I present the information on. One is from the Shravaka level of the sound hearer. Those can only use their ear to hear. And then from the level of a metaphysical level of the Mahayana, and the idea and understanding everything is empty and thus they're all connected. This is the second level, not bad. The third level is an esoteric level beyond words and phrases. This is Chan's domain. Everything else is there for you to practice to enter the door of Chan. Yesterday, I was very happy because one of my students, a monastic, I wrote something to him, and he entered the door of Chan. I know it by how he wrote, not what he wrote. This is the third level. You all are capable of this. This is like Master Ling Chi speaking to his audience, and he said, as I see it right now, I don't see anyone incapable of doing this. He said, don't hold these masters, these old masters, up to such high esteem and say, I could never do that. If it was that way, why would I just want to enlighten old people? I don't discriminate. You all have Buddha nature. This is Chan. All of you have Buddha nature. To some of you, it's difficult for you to see it or feel it. When you practice, then you come closer to it. The term Chan, C-H-A-N, is a word that its root is dhyana in Sanskrit, meaning practice. Thus, it is not necessarily a noun oh, I practice Chan. Chan is a verb. It is the act of doing, act of demonstrating. Moment to moment, we demonstrate Buddha Dharma. If you're just trying to go, oh, I promise I'm not going to lie, or I'm not going to eat meat, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that, and I've been a good, well, you could get several merit badges if you were a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, but you could not enter the door to Chan. This entering is mind only. The ego cannot enter. It can poke its nose in every once in a while, but that's about it. It's not going to be able to enter. I'm speaking in a very strange way because I want you to realize mind, realize what it's like when you are looking into the bubble. If you practice sincerely, there will come a time when there will be a self-absorption. This self-absorption absorbs the self. Pretty clear. It's coming from the other side. And then you understand. We'll get back to the Heart Sutra in a moment. But then you understand what you're doing here. So the Heart Sutra is an interesting one because in the Heart Sutra, it starts when the great Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara was coursing through the deep Prajnaparamita. He perceived that all skandha are empty, thereby avoiding all suffering, transcending all suffering. The point here is this is a wisdom sutra. It is a shortened version of 100,000 lines of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra series. And in that series, the prime proponent of wisdom is Manjusri. But here, Avalokitesvara, Kuan Yin Pusa, is the main proponent. And in this, the second person is normally Subhuti, like in the Diamond Sutra. Subhuti is speaking to the Buddha. But here it's not Subhuti, it's Sariputra. Why? Did you ever wonder why? Why wasn't it Manjusri in a wisdom sutra? What is this that's happening that I don't understand this? And if he's saying that all five skandha are empty, what are the five skandha? Do you know the five skandha? Perception. He perceived that all five skandha are empty. What if it's empty? Then how can he perceive with that skandha? He's not using the skandha. That's an illusion that there is an individual life and being that is composed of an aggregate of all these things, what the ancients call the five heaps or aggregates. It's not real. It's not real to the extent that it is something permanent. If you don't believe me, come back in 100 years and we'll carry out this argument again and see if you show up. And if you do show up, I'll probably run the other way because you'll be an abomination. But in any case, it isn't in this way. So Avalokitesvara is using the perception of the Buddha mind. The perception of the Buddha mind has no locale. It doesn't emanate from a self. It is already ingrained in each and every part of mind, this perception. Let me give you an example, something that my master said, and it took me a long time to deeply understand. I understood it right away, but I did not deeply understand it. And that once at a retreat, he asked, it is said that there is the regular eye, the third eye, the Dharma eye, the wisdom eye, and the Buddha eye. Which eye does the Buddha use? Which one does he use? Everybody said, oh, it's a no-brainer, right? The Buddha eye. And he said, he uses all of them. All of them. This is a different kind of perception. If you were to kill a bug, would not the bug perceive something as well? And if you could perceive like the bug, would it make you stop the thing before you terminate its life? This is great compassion. This comes from mind, not from a mechanical puppet. This is already pre-packaged within you, preloaded. But because of many, many times, you've lost this precious, precious perception of the Buddha. I'm offering it back to you. He perceived that all five skandha are empty. He's not talking about the perception from the skandha, from the viewpoint of a human. Once I had a very intense realization. I'm not going to talk about it too much, except that it was something that was difficult to adjust to. And then I read a sutra that said bodhisattvas straddle samsara and the absolute. Bodhisattvas straddle samsara and the absolute. This is what Manjusri was doing when he was replying to the question of emptiness. He knows what Vilamakritti knows, but nevertheless, his vow and interest is to deliver sentient beings, so he must speak. But as we speak, you'll find that there's a different language, a Buddha language, that those that are well-known advisors speak. And they try to bring you up to that language that you understand. And you incorporate it and you put this into your practice. All appearances are impermanent. There is no suffering because there's no sentient beings. All of this is an illusion. The idea of time and space is an illusion. But why was it that Guanyin Pusa was the one telling Sariputra? First of all, Sariputra appears because Sariputra represents the highest training of the Abhidharma, that everything is real. And so Sariputra is being rebuked or corrected in that moment. No, Sariputra, form is not real. It's empty. It's telling you've got to see this. It's not real. If you hold on to this world as a reality, as a discrete reality, it cannot work. It is like in the Madhyamaka school, part of the two truths. There is the apparent reality, that which is where we're at right now, and the absolute reality, which we're also at the same time. We cannot perceive the absolute reality, but as one perfects their wisdom and their practice, we are able to get a sense of it. And when that happens, there's a balance between straddling samsara and in the absolute. It is not one or the other. This was the truth of the Madhyamaka school, the middle way. Nagarjuna is saying it's this way. We cannot negate completely the reality of things, or we fall into nihilism. Nor can we say that they're all real, because that would not make any sense. The very simple way of doing that would be that if everything is real, and I would go to an ice cream store and order a vanilla ice cream, the next time I go in, I go, no, I changed my mind. I want chocolate. And the ice cream vendor would say, you can't do that. What do you mean? Because everything is real. The reality is that you love vanilla. You cannot change your mind. Changing your mind would extinguish your preference for vanilla ice cream. That's not possible. It always has to be that way. And this is what Nagarjuna did to the Theravada Abhidharmas that were clinging to this idea of reality in this way. I'm not here to punish or criticize Theravada. I'm showing you the progression of the doctrine as it finally reached China. In this progression, what came in was these sutras, and they were preloaded with doctrinal schools: Abhidharma, Madhyamaka, the middle way, Yogacara. All come in, and Yogacara said everything is just consciousness only or mind only. So Madhyamaka came in and said, instead of you're wrong and you're wrong, it's saying it is just this way. And we see this balance. It is the same thing as saying that the bodhisattvas straddle samsara and the absolute. It's the middle way. Sorry, I have a dog. I forgot to put him up. I was looking for him all over the house, and he was hiding. So when I started, then he manifested. So in any case, so I hope you don't get bothered by him. Okay, so I'm jumping around, but this is a taste of Chan. When Chan came in, again, we had mentioned the Taoist and Confucianism was there. It sounded good. From that, then, indigenously was created Huayan School, Tiantai School, and the Sanlun School, or the Shenwei Shulin School of Consciousness Only, but in a Chinese form. All of those are pouring into Chan. Chan's getting the benefit of it. It's not there and saying, no, this one I'm going to throw out. I'm going to fight with this. It just says, if it works, if it fits together, let's use it. That's what made Chan so strong. People think there's just a simple Chan doctrine that people followed it and whatever. No, it brought everything in. Everything was in there, including the kitchen sink. The kitchen sink was Pure Land. The study of from the Amitabha Sutras, the short version, long version, the contemplation of Amitabha, in the Sanskrit's Amitayus, but it is this idea of Pure Land, and even Pure Land, even up to this day, is a vital component of Chan. Why is it a vital component? because we use this recitation of the Buddha's name, Namo Amitofo, to calm the mind, to transfer merit, to bless people, to keep the mind so stable in the present moment. Whatever we need it for, we use it. So Namo Amitofo. When we see people, we say Amitofo. When we're leaving, Amitofo. If something good happens, Amitofo. When something bad happens, Amitofo. So all of this is also part of the Chan school. Otherwise, there'd be no need for beads. We use that as a reflection of this compassion. The compassion that we reflect is not the compassion of an individual person. You can recite the Buddha's name, you can transfer merit using your personality, life, or being to do so. But it is pales in comparison when you harness your Buddha nature to give and transfer merit. You can do this. It's actually not you, but mind can do this. You just have to have faith to do this, and you can harness this incredible Buddha nature to transfer merit. This is why Guan Yin Pusa is in the Heart Sutra. Why? Because the product of this profound wisdom is great compassion. And that's why it's being demonstrated in this Heart Sutra as Guan Yin. So Guan Yin is not just simply great compassion or a conditional compassion, it's an unbridled compassion reflecting a very, very great, profound understanding of Buddha Dharma, of how mind works. And in this way, and how mind works, this demonstration is infinite. It continues on. It's unbridled. It doesn't say, I love you, you're going to nirvana, you're going to the Pure Land, oh, you're going to hell, or whatever. No, it has an interest in all of them, not just the human sentient beings, but all sentient beings in all quarters. Why? Because they all possess Buddha nature. If you're not practicing Buddhism in this way, you're missing quite a bit of it. When you practice in this way, it's limitless. It's incredible because all of a sudden you begin to understand how the world truly moves or doesn't move, depending on how one looks at it. So this is Buddhism. This is Chan Buddhism. I've given you a flavor of it, and I guess I didn't need to write out my script because I didn't get past the second page. But in any case, I hope that this will stir your interest into practicing and elevate your practice if you're already practicing, so that you can see things from the perspective of the Buddha nature and not just simply from an individual. This may have stirred some questions in you, and this is the time that I will be glad to entertain your questions. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Hi, Gilbert. We already have a question in line. So Mary Candola is asking, if there is only one mind, how are we appearing as individuals? And if this is a dream, is this lecture not really happening right now?
Oh, it's happening. It's happening in the dream world. And it is not happening outside of mind. It can't happen outside of mind. That's why Nagarjuna had the idea of the apparent reality and absolute reality. The reality is that everything that appears, a projection, is created by the mind. So there is a reality to it, but it doesn't have a permanent reality like the mind ground. So when we look at, for instance, the Tian Tai school and they talk about noumenon and phenomenon, um, then the phenomena appears in the noumenon. It appears in the mind, but it owes its existence to that because this is the Buddha nature. So we have to begin to do this, and those questions are very very natural questions. They're they're perfect questions because all of a sudden if someone has not heard right view before, they can become a bit shocked. I had in the San Francisco, I gave a lecture in Dharma Drum there, and there was a man that had been practicing for quite a long time and years. And when I told him he's not real, he was shocked. I never saw a person where they say the jaw dropped. His jaw dropped, and it was hard for him to understand what that meant. I wasn't telling him, you don't amount to anything. I was just telling him from the perspective of Buddha Dharma that it is an appearance, it's a temporary appearance. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter because that would be nihilistic. Quite to the contrary, it's the exact reason why Guanyin Pusa shows up in the Heart Sutra to show this unbridled compassion towards all. So it'll take time, but yeah, keep asking those questions because those are excellent questions and they're natural at this point in your practice. And then we have Valerie.
Valerie, yes, please. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
So you were talking about Shakyamuni Buddha, and then Shakyamuni Buddha taught Nichiren Daishonin. He was his mentor, and then didn't Nichiren Daishonin break it down to and say, if you practice the Lotus Sutra and chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, these things will become understandable for you, correct? And by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you're trying to find your true self and be able to always express your Buddha nature, right? And then you'll know about that interdependent, dependency. You'll understand that you are them, they are you, and we are the universe.
The Lotus Sutra is a very powerful sutra that's used by many different doctrines for entry, and to the extent that one uses it and one can chant. The big thing is the emphasis is not chanting for pie in the sky and here too. It is that we are not in the equation. We don't chant, let's say, for the purposes of uh, self-aggrandizement or to get money or to build fortune here. We see through all of those things as illusion and appearances from karma. So if we chant in a way that is non-discriminating, non-vexating, then yes, this is very very powerful because we are now separating from the idea of this life and being. If we cling to the idea that there's still a life and being, then this is can be difficult to overcome later on. But there's nothing wrong with the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra is considered one of the Vayapula Sutras, which means a Vayapula Sutra is one that contains the complete understanding of Buddha Dharma, meaning that if one practiced it within it, there is sufficient wisdom that one can be delivered by it. And so it is a Vayapula Sutra.
When you mentioned the Heart Sutra, it reminded me of the experimental connection with the silent illumination. So may I take this opportunity to invite you to offer us a simple glance of guidance on silent illumination meditation or approach that's suitable for both beginner and advanced practitioner to continue their practice independently?
If you look on YouTube, I just saw it today actually. I have a series on sun illumination. You just have to search my name or mind work or mind work Chan, and you'll come up to a list of all of my lectures. I think I have them up to 254 or something like that. So you got plenty there that if you look and find one on the sun illumination, it will be there. And some of them, I think they even have some from different places that I've given retreats on. And I think in 2019 I did a sign illumination one, if my memory recalls. I have that in book form, but it's only in Mandarin, not in English. Um, but if you can read Mandarin, then that would be another source of it. Um, Silent illumination is a very worthy practice, but it requires right view to be extremely effective, because we don't want to just simply tamp down thoughts and just say, oh, I feel calm, I feel quiet. That was a good sleep. It isn't this way. Silent illumination is a direct resting of the mind and allowing the infinite nature of the mind to be revealed. It's always there. It's just that we can't realize it because we get in the way, and we're there. And even though we're sitting and trying to do silent illumination, um, we're practicing like Master Sheng Yen used to say, with one eye on the method and the other eye on achievement. And he says we cannot practice right in this way. Silent illumination, if you're using it, then I would strongly suggest you practice it in this way. The next time you sit, you don't sit before you even get to the cushion. You are not there. Just rest the mind. And as you rest the mind, you just simply sit. And as you sit, don't block thought, don't welcome thought, don't follow thought. Just sit with the understanding that all of this is mind. If you don't chase the thoughts either away or towards you, the mind is settled, it's resting. So you simply rest the mind. It takes time to do that because, and a lot of people don't understand this about silent illumination in the way I present it. They go, I, I, I did it, and I have even more thoughts. It seems like there's thousands of thoughts now in my head. What am I doing wrong? I said, no, you're not doing it wrong. You're doing it right. You just didn't realize how many thoughts there are. But when your mind is attached to the ego, it can only, by a binary, switch to this consciousness, then to that consciousness, this one and that one. It can only follow one thought at a time. But when the mind is resting, all of these thoughts and the potentials of thoughts appear simultaneously. When you get up off the cushion, then when you're coursing through the world, the same thing happens. But it's not vexating thoughts. Sometimes it is, but when your mind is very calm, many thoughts appear. Many thoughts that connect all of the dependent origination. Why is this person before me? Why are they smiling? Why are they angry? What can I say? All of these things are being processed in microseconds and dictating what you should do next. This is wisdom. This is what you're doing when you're sitting on the cushion. Don't think you're going to be flying away, or Shakyamuni Buddha will come and anoint you or whatever, give you a lifetime pass to Disneyland. It's not a fantasy. It is just this way. We run right into reality with silent illumination. But we have to be very disciplined in doing the silent illumination. There's no just you sitting, it's just sitting. So when there's a just sitting, it's resting and it stays resting. But we can't do that. Why? We keep thinking about what we're going to do tomorrow. I'm hungry, how much time it is, how painful is my leg going to get. I'm already noticing my ankle is hurting me. Is it going to get worse? Here, it's getting worse. All of a sudden, all these things, they come up and destroy the tranquility. You have to practice with sincerity. When you practice sincerely, you eat bitter. You can sit there. Like the ancients said, that you sit until moss grows on your tongue. Can you sit like that? You can do it. You just choose not to do it. You choose the vexations, desires that come up in the mind. Let them go. They're going to come up naturally. They're going to be bugging you, bugging you, bugging you. Hey, what did you think? You think this is going to be easy? You've been sitting for 10 minutes. Of course your legs are hurting you. Can you imagine if you sit for 15 minutes? And it just keeps blowing up and bigger and bigger and bigger. But silent illumination is just simply sitting. All that stuff comes up and it just goes, it goes. You don't have to give any thought to it. Just rest. What's wrong with resting? Most people, though, when they sit and rest, they equate that rest with sleep, so they fall asleep. You don't need to do that. If you use silent illumination throughout your day, you'll always be awake. You require less sleep, actually. So as you practice, and you keep your mind calm, you need less sleep. I only sleep like 4 hours a night, sometimes 5. If I'm tired, 6. But you don't need to sleep because your mind is resting all the time. I learned that from Master Sheng Yen, and it was one of the most important things. So we're not just talking about silent illumination in sitting down on a cushion. We're talking about it all the time. You're silently illuminating everything that is appearing, understanding the causes and conditions that are appearing. There's so multiple. It's not just, oh, because of this person comes up. There's so many other aspects to it. But the mind is capable of doing this. And it's very interesting because as we rest the mind, and this is irregardless of whether it's illumination or any other meditation method, when we rest the mind, then the wisdom is enabled. It's like you turned on the wisdom switch, and it's kind of like you're going into an auditorium that's dark, and you just keep flicking switch and switch and switch. This one's for this part, this one's for that, until finally the whole auditorium is illuminated. You see precisely everything, but not only that, because you're not operating on the present moment of you. It's the Buddha present moment. So the Buddha present moment is able to gather up what has been happening, what is happening now, and what will happen in the future. And it able to guide the environment that you are in into a harmonious environment, or to avoid discord with others, or to know precisely how to comfort somebody that has lost a loved one. All of these things come, and they're happening in an extremely fast way. It's as if you have a supercomputer that's processing information in parallel. I shudder at that because now they have these monster computers that are doing things very similar to that. but you process all this information in parallel and making decisions in an instant, although the mind has already processed all this information because it's there in the mind. So what happens is that everything appears to move very slow in relationship to you. It also is one how to navigate in a way and process questions and deal with questions without harming people, but explaining things in a clear way. And that's helpful too. This is what we call skillful means. And all of that comes from just resting the mind and then allowing the mind to process information in the speed that it can, which is limitless. It's beyond these supercomputers that are being made. But if you think of it in this way, I see that there's from Dot Lee, he's saying, oh, can you put that back up? Something about instead of resting that we contemplate. Contemplation is resting. How do you not understand contemplation? The thing is, with contemplation, contemplation is not cogitation. Okay, cogitation is, let me think about this emptiness or impermanence. And you're thinking in this way. Contemplation is simply harnessing the natural awareness of the mind. All of the sutras talk about this. All of the patriarchs talked about this. I think Dao Xin was one that really worked on this in one of his treatises, talking about the awareness of the mind. And please look these up because they're very important. And you will see that they just talk about mere awareness or this awareness. Even this awareness goes up into the Tathagata Garbha Sutras and the studies of the Dharma Dharmata Vibhaga Sutra. That's the sutra of seeing in the phenomena the intrinsic nature of mind. All of these sutras, they're very powerful, but when you understand contemplation is not cogitation, not thinking about something, contemplation is the resting of the mind. It's resting. And in this resting of the mind, there is a very deep, deep awareness. It doesn't come from the ego. It is from the other side. It comes from mind itself, turning the mind's eye inward. When we turn the mind's eye inward, then it works. So what I'm saying is not in conflict one bit with what Master Sheng Yen was talking about in terms of this awareness of the mind. And I really invite you to look that up and you will see, I believe it was the fourth patriarch, in one of his treatises, he talked about this and just kept going over it and over it. But you'll see that in many sutras, in the Dharmata Vibhaga Sutra, or it's like a treatise. It talks about this non-conceptual wakefulness. Now I'm throwing you really into the deep end, okay? This wasn't really on the schedule today, but it's in the Q&A, so I can get away with it. In this sutra, it talks about non-conceptual wakefulness. I talked about how when we move around, we're in a dream. And if we're in a dream, we buy into the dream, we buy into the game, we lose. Suffering is just around the corner. Joy will not last. But when we have non-conceptual wakefulness, it means that the mind is in a constant state of contemplation, constant state of awareness. Pretty good. If you can do that, that's really good. You're going to be able to deliver innumerable sentient beings, but you can do it. None of you cannot do it. Everyone can do it. You just have to simply practice in right view. When you practice in right view, you understand there is this non-conceptual wakefulness, meaning that you are not creating concepts in the mind. While you're here and you're straddling samsara with one foot, the other foot's in the absolute. It can see its purpose of being here. And its purpose is not to agitate others or to get revenge or to create a desire. There is just simply an interest in helping others. One young monk, he asked his master, "What is Chan?" And so the master just looks at him and says, "Ask me a question. One day you will see the profoundness of that answer." But it is just this way. You are so fortunate because you've heard right view, you've heard your practitioners. This is precious, precious, like a wish fulfilling gem. If you had a wish fulfilling gem, what would you wish for? The old one used to be $1 million, but that was like 70 years ago. Now, you'd probably want $2 billion. But what is good is that? Or to be immortal? And then exactly you have to make that wish very good because you could be immortal with a body growing older. You'd be old and farting dust. These are not the proper wishes. It is consistent with the vow of delivering innumerable sentient beings of self-nature. Very interesting. Of cutting off endless vexations of self-nature. Of practicing limitless approaches to Dharma of self-nature to attain supreme Buddhahood of self-nature. In another sutra, it talks about that the Buddhas use the vexations of sentient beings to practice. The Buddhas use the vexations of sentient beings to practice. This is very profound. Once I told that to one of my students that got a very deep realization simply by hearing that. Very, very deep. There's so many Dharma doors, 84,000 of them. If I keep talking, sooner or later, somebody's going to get it. And that's good. If even one person gets it or it comes close to it, it was worth my time to speak to. Here, even though I spoke and then without the notes, my preparation for this class has been all week. What am I going to talk about? Because to me, it's life and death. It's very, very important to do this, present this to you. My time here is almost gone, so I have to try to set the course for the next generation so that they can pick up the lantern and move it forward. Okay. So that's what I'm doing. And to some of you people that are farting dust, there's still time. You forgive me because I probably am the same way, but there's still time. I've had many people come to realizations later on. And I even had one lady that came to the final realization on the day that she died. She finally died and said, "That's it. That's it." And then she refused to die until she did that. So up to the last moment, it's just like you at a retreat. Don't give it up when you only have 2 sitting sessions left. I've had deep realizations on the last sitting session. So you go there and you practice sincerely. Yes. Okay. Nahilia.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that that will be our last question of the night. I really appreciate that everyone is putting so many questions. It makes me think that we should have Gilbert's again because, yeah, people is very interested. So thank you, everyone. I want to express our deepest gratitude to Gilbert Gutierrez for sharing his profound wisdom.